It happened in an instant. Not with a bang, but with a profound silence. On a Tuesday afternoon, every human on Earth simply vanished. One moment a man was hailing a cab in New York City, the next the cab was empty, rolling slowly to a stop. A child was laughing on a swing in a park in Tokyo. The swing continued its arc, but the laughter was gone. All 7 billion of us, gone. The world did not end. It just became quiet. The hum of our machines, the chatter of our voices, the endless thrum of our existence. It all ceased. The planet, for the first time in millennia, could finally hear itself think. In the first days, the world carried on with a ghostly momentum. Lights stayed on in empty skyscrapers, powered by automated grids. Televisions flickered in vacant living rooms, broadcasting news to no one. Subways continued their routes in the dark tunnels beneath the cities, their doors opening and closing for phantom passengers. But without human hands to guide, to fix, to maintain, this fragile illusion of order began to crumble. The silence was the first sign. Then came the darkness as power grids, one by one, overloaded or ran out of fuel. The planet was holding its breath, waiting for the next chapter to begin. A story written without its most dominant and disruptive author. The immediate aftermath was a symphony of small collapses. In homes, pets were the first to notice the absence. Dogs barked at silent doors, waiting for a return that would never come. Cats, more self-sufficient, ventured out into a world suddenly free of leashes and restrictions. Livestock broke through fences, wandering onto highways now clear of traffic. It was a slow, creeping chaos. A world built for us was now left to its own devices. The intricate systems we designed to control nature were now at its mercy. The stage was set, not for an apocalypse, but for a great and wild reclamation. A planetary reset button had been pressed. The first year passed like a long, slow exhale. The change was subtle at first. Weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement, their green shoots a small but defiant gesture against the concrete. Without street sweepers and gardeners, manicured lawns grew into tangled meadows. The air began to clear, the smoggy haze over major cities slowly dissipating, revealing stars that had been hidden for generations. The initial shock of our absence gave way to a new rhythm. The planet was healing. It was shedding the skin of human civilization, letting go of the constant pressure we had exerted upon it for so long. The great stillness was giving way to a new, wilder sound. A century is not a long time in geological terms, but for a world without human maintenance, it is an eternity. The cities, our greatest monuments, became the most dramatic battlegrounds. Water, nature's most patient and persistent architect, went to work. Without pumps running, underground tunnels and basements flooded, weakening the foundations of towering skyscrapers. Freeze and thaw cycles created cracks in roads, which became fertile ground for seeds carried by the wind. What began as a single dandelion growing in a fissure on a highway soon became a forest. The asphalt arteries of our civilization were being slowly, inexorably choked by green. Great metropolises transformed into vertical forests. Ivy, relentless and strong, scaled the glass walls of buildings, its tendrils prying apart mortar and stone. Roots of trees buckled sidewalks and burst through the floors of abandoned department stores. Rivers, once forced into concrete channels, broke their banks and reclaimed their ancient floodplains, turning downtown districts into marshlands. The iconic steel bridges like the Golden Gate were draped in rust and vines, their brilliant red slowly consumed by shades of brown and green. The world looked like a painting of a lost civilization, a testament to the impermanence of even our proudest achievements. The visual transformation was stunning. Picture Chicago's Magnificent Mile, not as a canyon of commerce, but as a literal canyon with a stream flowing down its center. Herds of deer grazed where designer boutiques once stood. Bears made their dens in the husks of abandoned buses. The world's great cities became unique ecosystems. Dubai's skyscrapers, half buried in sand, resembled a new mountain range rising from the desert. Venice, long battling the sea, finally succumbed, its submerged palaces becoming a coral reef teeming with marine life. It was a beautiful, haunting decay, a world being reborn from the ruins of our own. Our homes became havens for new life. A suburban house, its roof collapsed from the weight of snow and neglect, became a den for a family of foxes. The swimming pool in the backyard, now a murky pond filled with rainwater, was home to frogs and dragonflies. The once sterile environments we created were now bursting with untamed life. Moss grew over kitchen counters and birds built nests in the rafters of living rooms. Every structure we left behind, from the grandest cathedral to the humblest shack, was being repurposed by nature. It was a powerful reminder that we were only ever tenants on this planet, not its landlords. With humans gone, the animal kingdom experienced an unprecedented explosion of freedom and territory. Creatures once confined to shrinking parks and reserves spread out to explore their new, expanded world. Lions, no longer hunted, roamed from the African savanna into the overgrown suburbs of Johannesburg. Whales swam through shipping lanes now silent and free of massive container ships, their songs echoing through clearer, quieter oceans. Animals adapted to urban environments in surprising ways. Flocks of parrots descended from escaped pets took over entire city blocks, their bright colors a stark contrast to the decaying gray concrete around them. The most fascinating adaptations occurred among our closest relatives, the great apes. In a research facility in Africa, a group of chimpanzees, long exposed to human technology, began to experiment. One clever matriarch named Luna figured out how to use a discarded solar-powered tablet. She couldn't browse the internet, of course, but she learned to access the downloaded videos, endlessly fascinated by cartoons and nature documentaries. Her troop would gather around, mimicking the sounds they heard, a bizarre and humorous scene of apes binge-watching old media. They never understood the context, but they understood the patterns, a strange inheritance from their vanished cousins. Meanwhile, our technological children, the robots, faced a different fate. For a time, they continued their programmed tasks with mindless dedication. Automated vacuum cleaners patrolled empty houses until their batteries died, often stopping mid-sweep in a dusty corner. In a vast abandoned warehouse, robotic arms continued to assemble cars piece by piece until they ran out of parts, freezing in strange, contorted positions. One advanced android caregiver in Japan, programmed for companionship, would wander the halls of a silent nursing home, occasionally speaking to empty chairs. "Would you like some tea, Mr. Tanaka?" it would ask, before its power finally faded, leaving it slumped over in a permanent, silent bow. This new world was a tapestry of the organic and the artificial, the living and the decaying. A pack of wolves might hunt through the server farms of Silicon Valley, the silent, blinking lights of the machines their only audience. Monkeys in India discovered that shiny smartphone cases made for excellent toys, chattering excitedly as they saw their reflections. The legacy of humanity was not just our buildings, but our countless gadgets and machines. These artifacts became strange puzzles and playthings for the new rulers of the earth, a comical and poignant footnote to the era of Homo sapiens. The planet had moved on, and our junk was just part of the new landscape. Then, as suddenly as they had vanished, they returned. In the same instant, all 7 billion people reappeared, exactly where they had been a century before. The man who was hailing a cab found himself standing in a dense forest that had once been a street corner, a rusty taxi frame tangled in the roots of a massive tree beside him. The child on the swing reappeared mid-air, landing softly in a pile of leaves in a park that was now an untamed wilderness. There was a global moment of stunned silence, followed by a wave of profound and utter confusion. The world they knew was gone. The initial shock was overwhelming. People stood in what were once their homes, now crumbling structures open to the sky, with trees growing through their living rooms. They looked for familiar landmarks and found only a wild, green landscape. The air was cleaner, the sounds were different. No traffic, only birdsong and the rustle of unseen animals in the undergrowth. They were strangers in their own home, aliens on their own planet. The challenge was not one of rebuilding, but of survival. The skills needed to navigate a modern city were useless here. They had to learn how to find clean water, how to avoid predators, and how to make shelter from the ruins of their past. This new Earth was not empty. It was full of life that was no longer afraid of humans. A family trying to find their way out of a transformed suburban neighborhood might find their path blocked by a large, curious moose. A group seeking shelter in an old skyscraper would have to contend with the peregrine falcons that now claimed it as their nesting cliff. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. Humans were no longer the apex predator. They were just another animal, and a soft, unprepared one at that. They were trespassers in a world that had not only forgotten them but had thrived in their absence. In the end, the return was not a triumphant restoration, but a humbling lesson. It was a story about the incredible resilience of nature and the surprising adaptability of life. Humanity was faced with a choice: try to dominate the world again, to pave over the green and rebuild the gray, or learn to live within this new, wilder paradise. The disappearance had been a tragedy, but the world that emerged from it was, in many ways, healthier and more vibrant. The great challenge for the returned humans was to find their new place in it, not as masters, but as a part of the intricate, beautiful, and untamed web of life.